people keep on debating why Socrates chose death when he had the opportunity to go into exile, and what would have happened if Socrates would have chosen exile instead of death, and what is the benefit of getting rid of such a great man from the society. Several such questions have pondered the minds of humankind for over 2 millennia now. And one major person who also got bewildered by these kind of questions was a French neoclassical painter, Jacques Louis David. David made a painting in 1787 where he depicted the death of Socrates, and this painting, you can understand, was made 2 years before the start of the French Revolution, and then the storming of Bastille, we all know about it, and then the reign of terror that followed with the guillotine in the French Revolution. So the painting made by Jacques Louis David is written as Jacques Louis David, but it's pronounced as Jacques Louis David because he's a French person. Okay, so he made a painting in 1787 where he had highlighted the scene of death of Socrates. He is the founder of the neoclassical school of painting. The neoclassical school of painting is that school of painting which draws heavy inspiration from the ancient Greek sculpture or the sculptures which were present during the ancient Greek times. It draws heavy inspiration from that. So David shows that entire scene through a painting, and today for all of you I have got that painting with me, and we will try to understand what is the philosophical message that David is trying to give through that painting. So let's have a look at it. Now you can see this is Death of Socrates by Jacques Louis David. It's a 1787 painting. Socrates was given the option that whether you want to go into exile or you want to embrace death. Socrates chose the latter. He decided not to go into exile, and he gives a long explanation to his disciples who had gathered there that why he is choosing death and is not going into exile, and that's the point of maximum philosophical interpolation, that speech, final speech made by Socrates. If you look at the executioner, he is also pained to execute such a person. So he is turning his eyes away as he is handling down the chalice. But on the other hand, when you see Socrates, who looks muscular and also quite straight, you see that he is not even bothered about what he is about to grasp, whereas his whole focus is on something to which he is pointing to, and he is talking about the immortality of the soul. He is talking about that how he is hastening to the afterlife and all of that. Okay. Now this executioner also shows the lack of moral strength in common human beings, because although he is to perform his duty, he is not enjoying performing that duty, and he is also saddened by the overall scenario. This point where Socrates' hand is reaching out for the chalice and the chalice, you see a gap here. That's the point where the maximum philosophical message is encapsulated. What Socrates is saying, Socrates' logic is same. He is saying that if I decide to go into exile, it shows the weakness of my character. A philosopher should not be afraid of death. That's the first message. A philosopher should stand for his philosophy. Second message Socrates gives is that I will be breaking the social contract with the Athenian society, and I would be evading justice if I decide to go into exile. Because when he decided to go to trial, he already accepted the social contract, and because the outcome of the trial is not in his favor, now he says I won't accept it. So he is saying that I would be breaking the social contract that I have with the other members of the Athenian society. That's why I embraced death. That's the second point. Third point, he says, मैं कहाँ जाऊँ? Where would I go? Wherever I go, I will carry my Ilankas with me. And wherever I go, I will be in direct confrontation with the political and social class of that society, because Socrates' sense of justice and his role as a social and moral critic of the Athenian society brought him in direct conflict with those who were wielding power. So that's why you say, Socrates says that agar मैं कहीं चला भी जाऊं, I'll meet more or less the same kind of fate. So why not meet it today? So Socrates advanced three reasons. First reason, he says, I should not be afraid of death because I'm a philosopher. Second, he says that I will not be breaking the social contract. Third, he says, I will fare no better anywhere else, even if I decide to go into exile. And then he holds his hand and shows that I stand for justice. And that's what he says, that my whole idea is to build a society based on the principles of justice. Do you understand that? Everybody is mourning, everybody is in slumber, everybody is carrying a broken heart at this moment, because the tallest among them all, Socrates, is about to leave them. They all are the different phases of weaknesses that are inherent in the human character. Socrates is the excellence of human character. He identifies himself, or rather than you can say, he represents more or less the virtues of human character, or the excellence of human character. Now here is one man, if you could see, who is not looking at Socrates, much older, with his head down. This person is Plato. He is the only one who understands what is going on. He is not bothered about the death of the body of his master, but he is more bothered about the teachings of his master and how it would be propagated thereafter, once Socrates is gone. But one thing to be noted here is that at the time of execution of Socrates, Plato was a much younger person. Do you understand that? And Socrates here, he's shown much muscular. At that time, Socrates was 70. You cannot have that kind of a body at 70. Do you understand that? So it shows the strength of character. That's why Socrates is shown with that kind of a muscular build. But Plato is much younger. First, Plato was not present at the time of the execution of Socrates. And second, Plato was much younger at that time when Socrates was executed. Then how David shows Plato as an old man sitting next to the entire deck over which Socrates is grasping the chalice and drinking the hemlock. The idea here to be noted is that this entire thing is an imagination of Plato. It is flowing out of Plato's mind. In fact, this room is empty, and there is only Plato who is sitting in this room with his head down, eyes closed, and he is imagining what would have happened to his master that year in 399. Do you understand that? How he might have felt. He is the only person who understands this. Here, Louis David again gives his own initials one more time, LD. He writes Louis David, Jacques Louis David. Here he has made a signature just under Crito, which shows that this is his present state, and this is where he wants to reach, Plato. This thing has to be kept in mind, that Crito and not Plato was Socrates' favorite disciple. Do you understand that? Because Crito loved Socrates, you can say, in an unadulterated manner, unconditional love that Crito had for Socrates. Plato, on the other hand, was the disciple who understood Socrates more than anybody else. And therefore, you see, this entire scene depicted by Jacques Louis David becomes a great philosophical message for all times. In fact, it is released at the Salon in France just 2 years prior to the outbreak of the French Revolution. In fact, before that, you see that the American Constitution has already come into existence. 1787, the American Constitution came into existence. 1775, the Declaration of Independence had already happened. Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, was in attendance when this painting was released. So all the great minds of that time, They were congregated at one place because we all were trying to understand at that time what happened to Socrates and why did he decided to drink poison. 3 रीजन बताते हैं वो. पहला कि मुझे नहीं डरना चाहिए मौत से. क्यों? Because I'm a philosopher. Philosopher should not be fearful. Second, he says, और कहाँ जाऊँ? कहीं भी जाऊँगा यही करूँगा और यही करूँगा तो यही होगा, तो आज ही हो जाए. And third, he says that I will be breaking the social contract. I will be evading the justice system. I have faith in the justice system. Let people decide that whether the justice system was fair or not. But I will have faith in the justice system. I went to trial, I defended myself. Obviously, you can understand that on the other hand, there were prosecutors who were leveling charges against Socrates. Socrates के पास तो इतने पैसे भी नहीं थे कि वो कोई अपना कोई advocate या lawyer भी ले आए. तो Socrates defended himself, although no lawyer would have defended Socrates the way he did. He was much more genius than any other lawyer existing at that time. Do you understand that? So this is what happened. So Louis David gives us a message that from Crito to Plato is our moral journey, if we are trying to understand what Socrates did. And the same thing, Plato's message of Socrates, you see, the Socrates, what he is highlighting is pointing towards justice, or is pointing towards higher moral ideal, the excellence of human character, the need of virtue, that is pointing towards almost the same thing. If you see that Plato also does the same thing few years later in another painting called The School of Athens by Raphael. And here is where Plato is. I'll give you a zoom in look of that. This is Plato. You see Plato holding his hand more or less the same way how Socrates held in the Louis David painting. Okay, and this man, who is he? He is Aristotle. This is the School of Athens. So the Socratic philosophical tradition continues, although Plato's philosophy is very different from that of Socrates' philosophy, but both these historical personalities blend with each other in such a fashion that it is completely impossible to distinguish where Socrates' philosophy ends and where Plato's start. But we can definitely highlight the difference between both the philosophy, but the timeline is very difficult to highlight. This is what you have to keep in mind. Also, there is another larger philosophical message that you will find in this. The actual number of members who were present at the death scene was 15. But in this Louis David painting, the number has been reduced to 12 to draw an equivalence to the Last Supper of Jesus Christ. Do you understand that? So there is a larger philosophical message of religious ethics also in this. ठीक है, समझ आया?